Now let's turn our attention to the MCSD certification. And I'm not trying to confuse you here, but these things are really confusing when you try to look at them on the website. So I'm kind of trying to give you a little bit of a guide to understand what you're getting yourself into and where you can go with what you're going to learn in this course. Now, the MCSD, Microsoft Certified Solutions Developer Certification, can be obtained a number of different ways. Now, it's really divided into two categories based on the underlying technologies that you're certifying on. One is Visual Studio. The bottom line is, if you can kind of develop it generally in Visual Studio, it falls under there. And then SharePoint apps, which are totally different from any other kind of application. So that's the two main categories. Now, within each one of these categories, there are different specific MCSD certifications that you can obtain. So let's take a look at each category in the Visual Studio category of the MCSD certification. Now, the MCSD Visual Studio section has 3 MCSD certs that you can get. There is the MCSD Windows Store Apps certification, the MCSD Web Applications certification, and the MCSD Application Lifecycle Management certification. I'll go ahead and tell you, this exam that you're prepping for here, 70-483, Programming in C#, is part of the Windows Store Apps certification. Now, SharePoint Apps has, I think, one class or a couple of classes in there, but only one certification. And so I'm not going to go into that right here, but that one MCSD is, of course, SharePoint Applications. And there's, again, 2 or 3 classes you'll have to take and pass exams in there. Now, the MCSD Windows Store Apps certification can be obtained on 2 different platforms. Okay, I told you they were a bit confusing, right? So, within the MCSD certification, it's broken down into 2 categories, Visual Studio and SharePoint Apps. Within the Visual Studio, you can break it down into different ones, and then there's further subdivisions in there. For example, for MCSD Windows Store Apps, you can do 2 platforms. One is an MCSD Windows Store Apps using HTML5, and this is the exams you're going to take. Exam 70-480, Programming in HTML5 with JavaScript and CSS3. Then you'll also have to successfully navigate 70-481, Essentials of Developing Windows Store Apps using HTML5 and JavaScript, and then 70-482, Advanced Windows Store App Development using HTML5 and JavaScript. Then you can get an MCSD Windows Store Apps using C#. Notice you have to successfully pass this course, 70-483, Programming in C#, Exam 70-484, Essentials of Developing Windows Store Apps using C#, and then Exam 70-485, Advanced Windows Store App Development using C#. Now you're going to notice Microsoft has a definite interest in you learning to develop these Windows Store apps, because as of Windows 8 and Windows 8.1, this is the way Microsoft's going to suggest that you push apps out to client desktops, to users, and so forth. Now, you can still build straight up desktop applications. We'll kind of touch on that as we go through the course here. Now, the third type is MCSD Web Applications, and this involves passing 70-480 again, Programming in HTML5 and JavaScript and CSS3, 70-486, Developing ASP.NET MVC for web applications, and then 487, Developing Windows, Azure, and Web Services. Then the final one, the MCSD Application Lifecycle Management Certification, and this involves Exam 70-496, Administering Visual Studio Team Foundation Server 2012, 70-497, Software Testing with Visual Studio 2012, and 70-498, Delivering Continuous Value with Visual Studio 2012 Application Lifestyle Management. Now, if any of this seems somewhat confusing and somewhat hard to follow, it's only because it is. Again, as technology continues to expand and we get more and more specialties in things like web applications, phone development, SharePoint apps, whether we're using HTML5 and JavaScript or C# and so forth, the certifications have to follow. So I just wanted you to see the roadmap of where this particular course, 70-483, is in passing this exam, where it's going to kind of fall into here. But again, this is going to be step one of grabbing that MCSD Windows Store certification. So I hope this helps. If it hadn't, you can always go to Microsoft.com, just do a search on certifications and start to wade through it. I'm not even going to go into the SharePoint apps courses here because I don't want to absolutely drive you nuts. But hope this helps to understand where this course and where what you're getting ready for here fits into you eventually achieving MCSD certification.